Join us on Reformed Reference, where the wisdom of the great Reformed theologians echoes through the ages. Each episode is dedicated to quoting and reflecting on the writings of influential Reformed thinkers, those whose work has shaped the church and the world. Whether you're a seasoned scholar or someone just beginning to explore Reformed thought, this podcast is a treasure trove of timeless wisdom for the church today.
Welcome to the Reformed Reference Podcast. I'm John. I got a special guest, Jerry, and we're covering Dr. Greg Bahnsen, this whole season 1. This is finally episode 12. My brain hurts. I'm sure his brain hurts a little from covering Bahnsen. He even's reading the book. It's good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and we're kind of picking up where we left off. He was on an earlier episode about science. So there's a little bit more we want to cover here and unpack for you, and we're going to try to do that. There's a quote here on, I forgot the page number, but I'll put it on the screen here, from Dr. Bahnsen. Everything that man does with respect to nature, he does either as keeping or breaking the covenant of grace that God has made with man. Thus, the scientist in the laboratory and the philosopher in his study are both dealing with their materials either as a covenant keeper or as a covenant breaker. All of man's acts, all of man's questioning, all of man's affirmations, indeed, all of his denials in any dimension of his interest are covenantally conditioned. So that's a lot to unpack here. So the first question I have for Jerry, we're going to go back and forth here, is what does Bahnsen mean by saying all human activity is covenantally conditioned? Is he overstating his case, or is this a necessary conclusion of a biblical worldview?
That's a great question, John, because even just taking it away from covenantally speaking, every human thought, as you said, I agree, an action interpretation flows from a person's worldview.
Correct.
So your real worldview is either going to be
biblical
or Christian biblical, or something else, right? So
correct,
there's a worldview there.
Yeah.
So that's any scientist, philosopher, politician, layman, whatever. They have a worldview or standard they base their decisions on, right? That they form them. Most of them don't understand what that is, right? Or,
true.
Like, we ask them, well, what's that based on? How did you come to that conclusion? We talked about this the last time.
Yep.
Met with I don't know, but we talked about this again last time. When pressed, they'll have to reluctantly admit that they're their standard, right? They're the standard. Right? Their emotions at that time or whatever, it's going to be their standard. I would say that the Christian worldview is the only consistent worldview out there. It's consistent, very consistent. Would you agree with that, John?
Yes, you could basically, what he's saying is you could predicate reality, you could make sense of everything based on the Bible.
Yeah, but this is consistent. If just in general, if this generally is a good idea or bad idea, down the road, something similar is still considered a good idea or a bad idea, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit in another question I know you have.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to the point I just made.
Yeah.
Would you consider any other worldviews to be consistent other than the Christian Bible?
No.
Not even the Torah?
Well, see, he brought up the Torah here. Now, there's a difference between Judaism, which rejects Jesus Christ, and the whole Old Testament, which points to Jesus Christ. So everything that Paul mentioned, for example, in Acts 17, when he was in Mars Hill, he mentioned from the Old Testament,
right,
which was consistent with reality.
So and again, I guess I would agree with you, or we could agree that the Torah, as is written, is consistent. It could be consistent. It just doesn't point in the right direction theologically.
For the Jews.
For the Jews, they don't. Their worldview that we just
their lenses.
Dictates how they interpret that Torah, which we would think is in error. Now, I would just want to stay on this page just a little bit before we move on.
Yeah.
So I'm not thinking our Christian Bible is definitely consistent, very consistent.
Yep.
We could agree that Torah, as written, is. What about the Quran?
Well,
thinking about religious books.
The Quran, not only does it have internal contradictions, it says all of Noah's sons were saved, and in another part it says one of them drowned. The Quran says that none of Allah's words could fall to the ground, and it says the Old Testament and the New Testament are the words of Allah. So if the Bible came first and the Quran came 600 and something years later, and it contradicts the Bible, then ipso facto, the Quran's false.
Got it.
And one other thing I'll add here for the people out there, when I did my paper and he liked it on the Quran.
That was great. Yeah.
I learned, and I don't know if you knew this, today's average Muslim will tell you that the Bible has been corrupted, but it wasn't until 1000 AD that in Islamic literature you find, well, the text is corrupt. Prior to that, the interpretation was corrupt. So
I recall that now. Yeah.
They just kind of like go with that, and they're just like, wait a minute, do you have a background in textual criticism? No. Then how do you know that our text is corrupted?
Great point, John. Great point. Yeah. Awesome.
So the second question here is, how does this idea that Bonson's conveying here challenge the common assumption that feels like science or philosophy are neutral? We got quotes around neutral.
So again, I think we have to go back and define what we mean by science. The last episode I was on with John, we kind of developed this thing that's more scientism, where science, empirical science, evidential, repeatable experiments would be neutral. Right? Like we know the example I used last time, we know that it's at sea level, pure water will boil at 100 degrees Celsius. That's neutral. It's a fact. Right? It's just a fact. It's a nice orderly fact, which attests to our God, right? That is true. So I think let me ask the question in this sense, is that the goal of definition of science is basically to understand the world in which we live. Right? It sounds admirable and neutral until you ask the question why. Why do you want to know? Why do you want to know how photosynthesis works? Why do you want to know different things about nature? Why do you want to know that? I think for the Christian and non-Christian, that's two different reasons. For the Christian,
true. I never thought about that, because then if I'm just eat, drink tomorrow, I'm dirt pushing up daisies, I don't really give a care about why photosynthesis works.
Right.
Drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That's true.
Right. So what's the point? Why do we want to know?
For us, I think it would be to glorify God.
Like what Romans talk about, right? It glorifies God. Like I think there's two reasons, and that's one. Right? We look at it and like it's just amazing. Like there's things that scientists can't explain. Right, the order that there is, the consistency, the certain things that happen, and I think for the scientist who's not a Christian, well, actually, the second reason is so we can be good stewards of what God blesses us. That's our original design was to be good stewards of the earth, right? To steward the earth, and I want to know how things work, so I could, I could take care of what I was commissioned to take care of. So there's two reasons.
Stewards of the planet. That's true, and I mean, when Dawkins or people that are atheists out there have, we should care for the planet. Well, that's assuming a moral absolute.
Where do these morals come from?
Where the morals come from. I mean, like I said, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
Right. So there's an inconsistency in this worldview. We take care of the planet, or green. The people are not talking about go green to save the earth. Why?
Why should I care about this?
Here comes the inconsistency. I'll save it. I'll save the later. But then I think for the scientist then who doesn't believe in God, what's their worldview? Why do they want to understand?
That I don't understand that.
To me, I think it's because and I think I mentioned this the last time I was on. They may not admit it or not, but their goal is to eliminate God, to prove that God does not exist. See, we can do these things that your supposed God can do. We can do this. We can understand. We understand how this works. We can create this, but they can't.
But do you also think they want to conquer death? And like scientifically, one day we have this cure for it, and then the Bible says it's universal, and you're not going to cure it.
Maybe,
I mean, I never thought of
all these. I mean, or is it a recognition thing? And I think about like, hey, look, I invented this that helps to do. Like we came up. This thought just came to me. Thinking about all this progress with AI, right? So, are they trying to replace? I mean, they are. They replace a lot of things that humans do. So now, when humans are on this earth and they have nothing productive to do, what do? They just run away. They have no purpose.
Have no purpose.
They have nothing to do. They lose interest in actually even living. Right?
Well, and then you know what that dovetails into, and I'm sure your mom and dad told you this as a kid. Idleness is the workshop of the devil. When you are idle, you will generally get in trouble. So King David was on the top of his roof, looking around. Woo! There's Bathsheba. He was idle.
Idle. It's in the devil's playground.
Yes, it is.
So but I think we were designed to be productive, to accomplish things, like not to get the next level of a video game. Ooh, but that's not a sense of accomplishment. But for this generation is kind of almost falling for that lie.
Yeah.
So I think it's self-serving. A lot of scientists kind of look at the name recognition. Look, I discovered this. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
speculating.
I don't know.
But what is their why? Why do you want to know? Why do you
Yeah.
want to know? For what reason?
Yeah, philosophy, we call it teleos, a purpose.
Okay.
What's the purpose of this?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
I know you had written some notes here, right? That it says in most academic settings
Oh,
the default view is.
So basically, yeah, in most academic, I work in a library in a college, and I could agree with this. In most academic settings, the default view is scientists and philosophers can set aside personal beliefs. That's impossible. They follow evidence and reason alone based on, again, the starting points. Conclusions are reached from a kind of view from nowhere, which is impossible. So in other words, academia falsely thinks truth is discovered without prior commitment shaping it. And every thinker brings assumptions. You know what happens when you assume out there? You can look that up for you younger folks. What counts as evidence? Like sometimes when you bring this, a judge will say in a trial, this doesn't count as evidence. You can't, it's not admissible. Whether the universe is ordered or random, whether logic is reliable, like why should Jerry and why are contradictions bad? We can answer that. They can't.
Right.
And then whether truth is objective. And if you say truth is not objective, that sentence itself falsifies itself.
Right.
So, and neutrality versus commitment. So, yeah. I mean, does that make sense? Or
no, it does, right? What counts as evidence? How do you interpret the evidence? What are you looking at? What are you doing with this evidence? So that's kind of leads to that next question. That you have there.
How would someone outside the Reformed tradition for Christianity push back on this claim?
So they're thinking that sometimes they go, well, if we're covenant breaking, how do we come to so much truth? You have to kind of go talk about again what is truth.
What is truth?
Right?
Yeah.
What do you talk about? So is again the truth comes from the interpretation of the data.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you interpreting the data? You can't be void of your presuppositions, your worldview when you're interpreting data.
No.
Classic example I think I brought up last time was the fossil record.
Yeah, here's a bone to Ken Ham, 6,000 years old. Here's the bone, William Lane Craig, 10 million years old.
Not even just say we were consistent on the dating, right?
Yeah.
The interpretation is, well, it evolved, or the interpretation is God created.
Yep.
So you're going to look at the evidence with these presuppositions and lean either way. It's like, well, look, see, this proves this. We're like, no, it proves this.
Yeah.
Where are the holes? They can't both be.
They can't be true. No.
So what is truth? So you kind of have to ask yourself when looking at the different interpretations, if you can go into it objectively, which one makes the most sense? Which one's most logical?
Yeah.
Which one's more orderly? And that's a big one. I want to go back to the starting point you talked about.
Yeah.
Because in our last episode, there's some critiques, and I've heard this critique before when I brought about the cell, how the first cell came into existence, and that it had to be a plant cell. And I heard this argument before. Another one had brought years ago. I've heard it several times where they start talking about cyanobacteria and these things. But the thing is, the issue is that the evidence they're bringing to the table to debunk what I said is with evolution already in progress.
It's a
they go to the starting point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to the starting point, the first cell. You can't tell me what this happened in the process. Well, what started the process? So that's the problem. So we're not at the same starting point in that discussion.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to go back and rewind that first cell. I'm not talking about what may have happened later in your idea of what the theory of evolution is, right?
Macro, yeah.
So it doesn't jive. You're talking apples and oranges there. So anyways, I think I'll leave that for you guys to mull over at that point.
Yeah, in 21 years of academia, science, we wrestle with truth, but like science could tell me this is poison. He ran it through the lab test. It can't tell me what to do with it. That's the problem. Metaphysical truth is don't give it to my wife tonight,
Right.
So it's like, when you say, well, science gives us all truth, like, well, what do you mean by that? And, there's more to life than the physical domain of stuff, because we have truth, justice, morals, meaning, and beauty, and you can't find that in Darwin's lab.
No, well, I would think that Darwin's lab,
maybe, but
I would argue that with the theory of evolution and Darwin's, the whole this thing, survival of the fittest, you don't need morals.
Well, that's true.
There's morals at that point.
Might makes right.
Yeah,
I'm bigger than you. I take your pocketbook to a lady, and
you can't stop me. So whatever I want to do, right? So don't need morals. It could be a moralist society if Darwinism was the way to go.
And they try to argue that morals evolved so the species could continue, but I'm like,
so we're a morally better society now than we were.
no.
I don't know. I guess you compare to the Dark Ages; those are pretty bad times too, right? So,
True.
so I mean, it kind of ebbs and flows, I suppose. But
and Christianity helped stop first century, like things like infanticide. It gave women rights. First people that saw Jesus alive in the ancient the ancient world, if you wanted, women didn't hold up in a court of law as witnesses. So go tell my boys to meet me in Galilee. He appeared to the women
first. Women first, right?
If I'm gonna, make up a book, I'm not gonna, have women witnesses. If I'm Peter, don't put the account in where I, denied him 3 times.
Right.
It just gives you the brute truth.
Right. He denied himself to a woman. Right?
Yeah,
to a girl.
I know who you are. Yeah.
Insignificant in that culture, an insignificant person, and then and he. So yeah, I mean that's
Paul
a great
and
point.
Barnabas had an argument, warts and all. It's in there, and
right?
Yeah, they split company over it. So the Bible is it tells it like it is. It records man's inhumanity to man. It doesn't justify that. Like I get that all the time. Well, the Bible has slavery, but is it telling you to go out and have a slave now?
Right.
Then next question, please. It's like go away. Yeah, I can't. Well, anything to not believe it. And then one of the last questions here, as we're coming towards the end, can you think of examples where worldview commitments clearly shape conclusions in science or philosophy?
All right, so here's the thing that I talked about. I alluded to like 3 times already. Saying about the inconsistencies with worldviews in science, right? Uh-huh. So you cannot refute the empirical scientific evidence. According to the definition of life, a single cell is alive, right? Yeah. So a sperm cell is a cell and it's a living organism. Yep. It's a life. It's a living organism. It is alive. An egg cell is living. It's alive. Mm-hmm. When they get together, things happen, and those are all living cells. It's alive. You cannot refute the fact that it's living.
Yep.
Science and philosophy, some people say, well, that's insignificant life. It could be aborted. It's a human egg, a human sperm. It could be aborted. Who draws the line and what's significant and insignificant at that point?
Yeah.
But the same people who will advocate for abortion is okay, it's insignificant life, you've heard this before, they'll advocate that we need to protect endangered species.
Why?
So why is that endangered species life more valuable or more important or more significant than a developing baby? Yeah. Because then it comes down to, I talked about the worldview, I think I talked about this, I don't know, what's their standard at that point in time? Their ego, their comfort, their pride, themselves. It's self-serving.
Yeah.
Their worldview is self-serving. It will change based on their circumstance.
And what's interesting, too, words are important. They redefine terms. For example, abortion is healthcare. Then you could ask, what disease does it cure?
What disease you're curing?
It doesn't.
That's probably, they have it covered by insurance. Insurance doesn't cover it. Healthcare. Really?
Or it's reproductive rights, but there's no reproduction. The baby's...
Right. So there's that inconsistency. We know science says this is life. Well, who's to determine? Now there's the philosophy comes in. Who's to determine what's significant and insignificant? And then again, like I'm going to say it again, why is the human developing in the uterus insignificant compared to an endangered species?
Yeah. And I'll give you a trivia question here. Who was the first person to recognize Jesus?
Oh, John the Baptist.
John the Baptist in the womb. And he jumped.
Right.
And the Greek word for baby here in the womb, I think it's brepos, is used for the baby outside the womb in the New Testament. So the New Testament doesn't know a distinction between, nobody has a fetus shower.
Right.
It's a baby shower. And the word in Latin, I think fetus means baby.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah. If Bonson is right, how should Christians approach debates or conversations, spirited conversations with unbelievers?
I think this comes down to, I mean, we both agree that I like this phrase, but when I first was introduced to it, I like the approach of the guy.
Yeah.
But, I would always kind of resort back to how did you come to that conclusion and what's your standard? What's your standard?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, my standard is the Christian Bible through the lens of Reformed theology, systematic Reformed theology.
Yep.
You don't have to agree with my standard, but tell me yours. And I can guarantee you your standard is not consistent.
Yeah.
I can guarantee it.
No.
It's not going to be a consistent standard. It will change based on your situation. You're not going to find a science, you're going to say, science is my standard. Good luck finding everybody in the science community to agree with each other.
That's true.
Let alone one person to be consistent in their own views on things.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, I get the scientist that says abortion is okay, but we need to save endangered species. Well, that's an inconsistency.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
I think it's an inconsistency.
Yeah, academia is full of that. There was a sign on a college lawn that said, "It's okay to think you're right, but it's wrong to think others are wrong." That sign's dead on arrival because it's like, but that's the thing where everything is true. But then if I think I'm right, then by default I would think you're wrong. But I tolerate you, but I don't try to kill you. But
Right. Again, I think we've had this discussion before. So if the truth is subjective, then you can't question anything I do,
no,
especially morally. You can't question anything I do.
yeah, no,
Right?
that's true.
I think to steal a quote from one of your favorite guys, we could both agree that the kicking babies for fun is wrong.
Yeah, everyone knows kicking babies on the street for fun is wrong.
But
yeah, so it sounds, Jerry, like the Christian should not pretend there's neutrality and maybe not just exchange facts, but go after the foundation. Because if you're shooting at a guy in those old medieval times, he's up in the what do you call it, the tower there. If you had a catapult thing that could take out the foundation, that would be much better than exchanging arrows with this dude.
Well, they even think about boxing, right? Headhunting's not a good idea. You're pulling at the body.
And then when they give way and hit them, then
yeah. So I'm not saying
no, don't go out anybody, but
I say you just kind of but I think we're doing a disservice if we do not question the person we're debating. If we don't question, how did you come to that conclusion? What is it based on? Because they're just spewing out stuff that they've heard, and they have no reason to. They have no reason on why they believe it. They have no foundation for what they believe in. And that's not good.
No. And does this make apologetics more confrontational? Way back on one of the episodes, Collision, or more relational, Coffee? And by the way, what I have here. So, what's the old saying by Van Til? We'll get back to the question. Don't budge on truth, but always buy the coffee.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be cordial, but here's the thing, and I know you've witnessed it more than I have.
Yeah.
You try to be cordial, and but people when they get put in a corner, when they can't answer those basic questions, like, how did you come to that conclusion? What's your standard? Based on what? But yeah, all right, I heard what you said, but based on what? Then they change it up. What do they do next when they're back in the corner? What will they do generally?
They act out like a cornered animal.
And so
fight or flight.
Yeah, no, but they start attacking your character. Well, you are this. Well, wait. I'm asking you a question. Why are you calling me names? They'll start attacking you.
Yeah,
right,
so that's what saying by our brothers with the Lord now, Carl Smith. If you have truth, you discuss truth. You have law, you discuss law. If you have neither truth nor law, you attack character.
But that's what they do. Right?
That's what they do. Yeah, attacks. Yeah, and in fact, I was talking to an atheist a couple of weeks ago who will remain nameless in case she's watching, but I'll give you the gender there. But she was like, the universe. When I brought up a YouTube video, well, how do you know that's true? And I said, well, what's truth? And then, she was going on and on about it being relative. So wait a minute, you're an atheist. You believe in chance, right? Yeah. And then why do you in academia argue logically with inference? Then is there structure to the universe, or is there no structure to the universe? Which is it? Why are you trying to catch me in my words? I'm just trying to predicate reality. That's all. I'm trying to understand you. You
put these cards on the table.
Yeah,
these are your words. I'm not.
Yeah, once you put someone on the table, then
it's a card you played. So let's play with the cards you put on the table.
Yeah, I know. I would never want to kill babies in that Greg Coco illustration. Well, she used the word babies there. Yeah, it was that whole tactics thing. So oh, did you want to discuss R2K a little bit? Or push?
At
the end here.
Yeah, I'm going to ask. Yeah, I forgot I had a question.
He's going to be the host here now.
I had a question for John. So, how might advocates of this David Van Buren of Two Radical Kingdoms respond to this quote? So maybe I have to explain a little bit what this Radical Kingdoms is.
This is kind of tricky because there's a thing called Two Kingdom theology. Augustine wrote a book, The City of God, the City of Man. Luther had a view of the church and the state, which was a little bit different than John Calvin's, which Geneva was more of a quote-unquote Christian state. And then there's these proponents today that run amok. It's called radical two-kingdom theology. There's the common realm and there's the ecclesiastical realm. And the church and the state have nothing to do with each other. There's some good things in that. We don't want a state church like the Anglican Church in England. However, there's some bad things in it where the church is not being salt and light, because everything you bring up, we can't touch that. That's political. William Wilberforce, for example, I asked a pastor this question. He was the guy that helped abolish slavery in England in about the 1790s. I said, Pastor, would you get together, put it on the church bulletin that William Wilberforce is going before English Parliament to try to end chattel slavery? Nope, that's the church being political because it's getting involved in something that's Parliament. And that's the radical two kingdom where Monday through Saturday, you could work as an alderman, put up in City Hall a Buddhist statue, a Hindu statue, and on Sunday preach that those are evil deities. Yeah. It's compartmentalizing your faith.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up earlier when I was talking about consistency. A person who can do that, I would question their faith. Someone who can compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Like you're going to worship God on a Sunday, our Lord Jesus on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And then not take your real view that you have of Him and carry it out into your work life and the decisions you make throughout the day. That's it. I would question whether or not you were saved.
Yeah, and America was a Christian nation. The problem is when people hear that, they hear Christian nationalism. And Thomas Jefferson did write the letter to the Danbury Baptist Association, there will be no state church. And I was debating a librarian once in New Haven Public Library. Oh, the separation's in the Constitution.
It's not.
How much you want to bet? He went to the Constitution's page. I don't know if it's archive.org or whatever it was with the government. And he did Control F, church. It went right through the whole document. It's not there. I said, I told you.
It's not there.
And Jefferson was ensuring that there would be no, like the Anglican church. So if you're a Reformed Baptist, kind of like we are, the government can't come and say, hey, we're going to baptize your daughter, whether you like it or not, because it's a state church.
Right. The whole idea of that, what he wrote was to keep the government out of the church, not the church out of the government.
Yes.
And we twisted that.
We twisted it. And by the way, not to go too far down the R2K, Radical Two Kingdom, if it's wrong for them to interact, then throw out the Council of Nicaea, because Constantine was the emperor and he called for the church, get your doctrine in order.
Mm.
The Westminster Confession, you know who told them to do it? Parliament.
Really?
Yeah. So then if you're going to be consistent, then, you know, the church can't celebrate Thanksgiving because the state called for the holiday. And you can't have a Wednesday evening
service. Well, that's kind of what's the Jehovah's Witnesses kind of lean that way, right?
JWs believe in a theocracy where that it's only, they don't celebrate birthdays and the weirdest thing.
Or any holidays, right?
Any holidays, yeah, because King Herod had Salome, the daughter, whatever, dance for him on his birthday. So when they read the text, the starting point, like you said, it's faulty from the get-go. But anyway, any last minute? Well, the noetic effects of the fall. Basically, that is when man fell in the Garden of Eden, his reasoning was corrupted. So Jesus Christ, Jerry, I don't know if you knew this, not only did he come to save our souls, he came to save knowledge.
Oh, and I think we talked about this the last time too. Nowhere in the Bible are you asked to follow blindly.
No.
Right? Because be renewed by the transforming of your mind.
Yeah.
Right? So never ever. So that's when people go, you just follow this blind. No. Christianity has never ever been based on that, ever.
No, then if that were the case, then the best thing to do is just have Jesus's bones there. I believe, despite the evidence, you know. Right. Where's his bones? He's dead, you know.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, faith is kind of ill-defined today. Like, I have faith, you know, like a nebulous kind of.
Yeah, you think, what's going to happen? I believe it's going to happen like a luck thing, more like a luck.
Yeah.
Right?
And
but I think that to wrap it up, I would just say, you know, the worldview, again, like I started off with, like, the Christian worldview is really the only consistent view out there. Any other view is just very inconsistent and doesn't stand up under the weight of Christianity.
Yeah.
So going back to the core, is it a covenantal breaking? Yeah.
It is.
It is, because
it's God's world.
And that's why where I ended with the quote that you kind of took back on. If you can't carry your worldview, your Christian worldview into your daily life, into your decision making, no matter what job you have, then I would question your salvation.
Yeah,
I would question it.
Well,
because you shouldn't, because you're breaking the covenant at that point.
Yeah,
my worldview says I should align myself this way, but I go this way. You're breaking a covenant.
And, you know, in closing, too, he mentioned the Protestant Reformation worldview. it was the Roman Catholic Church that said the only true calling is the calling to the cloth, the priesthood. So he's a chemistry teacher. I'm a librarian. The Protestant Reformation was like, hey, be the best librarian, be the best chemistry teacher you can be. That's your vocation. But Rome kind of like butchered that and said only the priest has a true calling. We are to take God into the lab.
We are
into the library field, and my theology on tap last night covered pietism. It started in Prussia. Frederick the Great, he didn't want the church involved in the state, so teach pietism. It's Jared, when you go to Cornerstone Church, keep your faith there and with Lois in the four walls of your home. That's it.
That's it.
And you can't do that. That's not being honest with the text.
No. You're right. You're right.
And our calling, go out and make disciples of all the nations. Yeah, not individuals. But anyway, well, this has been a blast, and I hope you enjoyed. We're done with Bonson. Next season, we're going to do William G.T. Shedd. And for you Reformed Baptists out there, there will be no infant baptism quotes for John Hare and the boys. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Reformed Reference. I hope the wisdom of these faithful theologians has deepened your understanding and encouraged you in your walk with Christ. As we close, remember that the truths of Scripture and the insights of the Reformers are not just for yesterday. They are for today and for all generations. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.